Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is me, your host of the party, Kenny Polcari. And this is today's morning market commentary on everything you need to know. So where am I today? Well, clearly I'm in Manhattan. I'm in New York City. I'm actually in the West Village on the corner of Hudson and Morton Streets, if you're familiar with that. This is just a typical scene of New York City behind me. You see, it's not a whole lot of action. Every once in a while, you're going to see one or two people walk by in an occasional truck that's going by right now. So life in New York appears to be trying to come back to some sense of normalcy, but once again, we got this whole new variant of the Delta virus causing havoc and chaos once again around the country. So we'll see where that goes. So what's really important? Let's talk about this. What is everything you need to know? So yesterday, Jay Powell came up and he teed it up, but he really did not commit to any start date, right? Inflation, as he says, is still transitory. So stop asking. He's not changing his position. Amazon today reports after the bell. Don't expect anyone to disappoint, because if you do, you're in the wrong place. And Robinhood debuts today, right? A $38 IPO price, 52 million shares to the market, small enough to create some panic-driven buying in what could appear to be a FOMO IPO. Oil up, Bitcoin up, Ethereum up, bond prices up, bond prices down, sending yields higher. And what are we having for dinner tonight? We're going to try the potatoes and eggs, which is always, a comfort food and a classic. So the day started yesterday with Elizabeth Warren coming out, taking to the airwaves, arguing with Ken Langone and asking anybody that's got more than $50 million in cash and jewelry and paintings and bitcoins and real estate, etc., to be subject to this annual wealth tax. In her words, this tiny little itty bitty tax that would pay for new roads and bridges and free childcare, free education, free healthcare, and free everything. To be clear, it was only this tiny little tax. They wouldn't even miss it, but they would pay it year in and year out, right? Does she not understand that these people have paid taxes on this money as it was earned, as it should be? So now she wants to tax them again and again and again just because they've been successful? Come on, it's time to move on, right? We got to get off that. Stocks struggled for most of the day yesterday and then began to find some footing after when Jay Powell came out at 2 p.m., right, and signaled that the rates would remain at zero for the foreseeable future. But he did indicate that they have begun talking about when to tap the brakes, right, as they say, or when to pull back on this monthly stimulus. But he qualified it by saying that there is still some ways to go, right? That the economy has made progress toward these goals, and the committee will continue to assess progress in coming meetings with an S on the end of it. Not the coming meeting, but coming meetings with the S. So that kind of leaves it wide-ended, right? He went on to say that the clock is ticking on the tapering, but it's not happening now, and it won't happen in September, which was not unexpected, right? Everyone expects it's going to start later in the year or very early next. So November, December, maybe even January. A timetable that, so many of us have been talking about for months now. But look, he did promise to say that he's going to offer plenty of advance warning before any decision at all is being made to start scaling back. And in the end, the Wall Street Journal puts it this way, that he teed it up. And in fact, that's what he's done. But he also continues to express the fact that inflation is transitory. And he's not changing his view on that, right? Even as consumer prices are rising at the fastest pace since 2008, and there's no end in sight. But he's not changing his opinion, so stop asking the question, right? He's not taking any responsibility for the surge in consumer prices. It's clearly not his fault. And finally, he did remind us that the COVID variant does pose some risk to the economic outlook, right? By the end of the day, investors set the Dow down 128 points. The S&P was down 1 point. The NASDAQ up 102 and the Russell up 33 points, right? The 10-year yield ended at 1.24%. Oil advanced by 60 cents to end the day at 72 and a quarter. I mean, remember that panic selling last week that took oil down to $65? It was ridiculous. The energy yesterday, the XLE was the strongest sector. Demand, right? Up nearly 1%, while consumer staples, which was the XLP, was the weakest sector, falling by 1%, right? The value trade was down, the growth trade was up as this rotation continues. Look, away from the Fed, we got blowout numbers from Facebook, yet they're signaling a possible slowdown in ad revenues ahead, right? Putting pressure, and that's putting some pressure on the stock this morning. In addition, we got blowout numbers from Google and Apple, Microsoft, and Boeing. And actually, Boeing reported its first quarterly profit in 2 years and expects this recovery this recovery to lead to a stronger than expected recovery in air travel. And they're ready to take full advantage of it. And they're also waiting on China to recertify the 737 MAX and then place hundreds of orders for the plane. Today we're going to hear from about 24 more companies: MasterCard, Baxter, Merck, T. Rowe, ICE, Northrop Grumman, Valero, to name just a few. But the big one that everyone's waiting for, and they're sitting on the edge of their seats, is Amazon. Right? But you're going to have to wait till after the bell for that. Expectations are for them to report $12.28 a share. And for anyone that expects they're going to disappoint, you better think again. Surely they're going to blow through every possible expectation and metric out there, and that's going to send Lizzie Warren into a frenzy. Year to date, the stock has underperformed the broader market, though. It's only up 12.5% versus the broader market up 17%. So let's see what that does, what the earnings report does to that today. And new to the party is Robinhood. It's going to trade on NASDAQ under the symbol HOOD. But I think it should trade under the symbol Hoodwinked. That's another story. The stock was priced at the bottom end of the range, $38 a share, and they are banking on the fact that they held out 35% of the offering for their hooders, right? For all the Robinhood traders now, that they hope are going to come in droves, driving the market price up substantially, giving it that first day IPO pop. Vlad Tenev and Baiju Bhatt each sold $50 million worth of their own stock on the pricing last night. And at that price, they both became billionaires, right? The total offering was 52 million shares, not a huge amount, but not a huge amount. It's respectable, but it's small enough to create this panic buying, which is exactly the story they want to create, right? The IPO raised $2 billion in the IPO. And at the IPO price, Robinhood is now valued at about $32 billion. Remember, they are trying to create this real dramatic opening today. I'm not a supporter of the company, but I am interested to see how well it is or is not received by both institutional and the retail investors. Word has it that the stock was trading as high as $55 in the private market, which would be a 44% premium over the IPO price. And that would be seen as a good day by Tenev. And it would also give the IPO buyers a quick flip. So let's see if the diamond hand traders suddenly become paper hand flippers too, because that's going to be very interesting to see how they answer that question. Economic data today includes the first release of second quarter GDP. The expectation is 8.5%. Personal consumption up 10.5%. Initial jobless claims of 385,000. Continuing claims of 3 million. Pending home sales expected to be flat, yet year over year is expected to be down 3.3%. This morning, futures were up. The Dow was up 125, the S&P's up 9, NASDAQ was up by 12, the Russell was up by 20. The 10-year yield is trading at 1.25%, and oil is up again, trading just below $73 a barrel. The VIX is trading at 1763, sitting right at trendline support. A breach below trendline is going to give stocks another boost, while any move up is going to cause stocks and investors to pause. Bitcoin pierced 40,000 last night. It's now trading at 40,300. Ethereum is trading at 2,300. Look, the S&P closed at 4,400 last night. While the trend line does support room for further upside, it just feels a little bit tired right here, right? Earnings season winding down now. August tends to be a quiet month. And then we're going to enter the fall season, which also tends to be a seasonally volatile period of time under normal circumstances, right? And these are anything but normal. The latest COVID variant is causing renewed concerns around the country, and we're starting to hear about companies rethinking the reopening of their offices, etc. Right? Twitter is closing their offices in California and New York effective immediately with no guidance on what's next. The CDC is now demanding the return of mask wearing, whether you're vaccinated or not. Individual states, though, are going to provide further guidance with lines drawn right down the political spectrum, as you would imagine. Republican states running with, if you're vaccinated, you're good, and if you choose not to, then that's your responsibility. If you get sick, right? And whatever happens is going to happen to you. Democratic states, on the other hand, are demanding that everyone wear a mask, no matter if you've been vaccinated or not. So you can feel the tension is starting to rise again, and it's pitting family member against family member, right? In any event, the virus variants remain a risk factor for the markets, especially as we come into the fall, which is that seasonally volatile period, right? I'm still thinking we get this 7 to 10% correction in the broader market. But so much is going to depend on the ongoing macro data. In addition, expect to hear more now from different Fed members that are now going to begin to take to the airwaves After the meeting, they're going to start to all float different balloons to see which ones get the better or worse reactions, right? Because that's how they're going to start to frame their next conversation. In any event, remember, you got to stick to the plan. Investing is dynamic. It's not static. So you always keep some cash ready to deploy. Just don't be so quick on the trigger yet, because I do think, like I said, that you're going to get your opportunity. Price is going to weaken as we go forward, I think, so you'll get an opportunity. Remember what you can do. You can text the word invest to 21,000 on your phone to get my digital business card. It goes right to your phone. Download it, email me, text me. Feel free to call me. I'm happy to have the conversation. And you can always catch me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is just my name. It's at Kenny Polcari. Okay, so it's kind of a cloudy day in Manhattan. It's not raining. It's a little bit cloudy. So what are we having for dinner tonight? We're having an old family favorite. It's a classic dish that you can eat for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, right? It's easy to make. If you don't feel like making a mess and cooking, make this. Make sure you get some nice Italian bread with it too, though, because you'll never go wrong, right? It never goes out of style. And like I said, you can eat it for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or you can eat it for all three, right? Anyway, so what do you need for this? Okay, you're going to need eggs. You need some russet potatoes. You need garlic, onion, salt and pepper, butter. You need some olive oil. You need fresh grated Parmigiana cheese. And if you prefer, you can even use like a pinch of Italian seasonings, right? You can buy that at your grocery store. Just Italian seasonings is what it's called. You're going to turn your broiler on to high. You're going to get that ready for when you need it, right? You're going to peel a couple of the russet potatoes. You're going to slice them, right? Not super, super thin, but, not thick either. Kind of in the middle. You want to put them in a pot of boiling water. Bring the water back to a boil. Once you put the potatoes in, blanch them for about 3 to 5 minutes. Strain them, and then set them aside. In a large bowl, you want to crack 6 to 8 eggs, but depending on how much you're making, how many people you're cooking for is going to determine that. You're going to beat them well. You're going to add a splash of either whole milk or half and half, whatever you prefer. I use half and half, as you might expect. Season it with salt and pepper, and you can put that Italian seasoning here if you like. You're going to add a handful of grated Parmigiana cheese, and you're going to mix it up, and you're going to just get it ready. Now, in a large oven-safe frying pan, you want to melt a dollop of butter. You want to add just a squirt of olive oil to help the butter so it doesn't burn. You're going to add a little bit of the chopped garlic. Not a lot of chopped garlic, just maybe 1 clove chopped, smash it, chop it. And you're going to add the onions, right? You're going to saute everything until it's nice, soft, and golden. It's usually 8 to 10 minutes. Then you're going to add the eggs. You want not the eggs. You're going to add the potatoes. You want the potatoes cooking there until they get brown on both sides. Now you're going to add the eggs. You're going to roll the pan so that the egg spreads around the whole thing. Don't start mushing it around. You want it to all level up, but roll your pan, right? And when the side of the egg starts to peel away, and you use a rubber spatula, right, going around the edge of the pan, pulling as it cooks, you'll pull the egg away, and you'll know when it's done. You can tell. Turn the heat down to medium, though. Do not keep the heat on high, because you don't want the bottom of the potatoes and eggs to burn, right? So you want to keep the heat down, and you just want to roll the pan so you get the liquid beaten eggs off the top, kind of roll it all around to the edges, and as it cooks, it'll peel away from the side. You know what I mean, right? Because you've done this before. This is not your first time making eggs. Once that's done and the top is still wet, though, this is when you now want to take it and stick it in your oven under the broiler. Now, here's where you have to be careful. Put the rack, not right up against the broiler, but at the kind of the second level down. So when you put the pan under there, you don't burn the top of the eggs before it's really cooked. So put the pan in there with the eggs on the second rack. Close the door, let it sit there. Just, it's gonna cook very quickly, right? So it might be 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Keep your eyes on it. You'll see it as it starts to cook. It might start to bubble up like that. You want it to get a little bit kind of goldeny brown, in spots, but not. You don't want the whole thing to get golden brown, because then will have overcooked it. Pull it out when it's ready. It should come right out. If you're using a nonstick pan, you can just you can shake the pan like this. You'll see that it's loose. It'll start to move around, and then take it and put it onto a big round platter. You can cut it like you would a pizza, right? Cut it across, and then cut it into 8 slices like you would a pizza. Here's what you need to do. You need to have really fresh Italian bread, right? That you want to toast, because you want to make toasted Italian bread. And then you can either take a piece of the potatoes and eggs and just eat it with the toast, or you can actually make a sandwich out of it, right? Now, if you do it on toasted bread, you're going to use 2 slices. If you're going to use it on just non-toasted Italian bread, but really fresh Italian bread, then just put it between the 2 slices as well. Make sure you serve this with ice cold milk, whether you use whole milk or 1% or 2% or fat-free, doesn't make a difference. Just make sure you serve it with ice cold milk, because this dish, this meal, it brings back such a memory. It's like a childhood memory for me, but they are memories of a simpler time, right? And so it's always nice to think about simpler times, especially in the confusing, chaotic world that we're living in today. In any event, it is another day. It has gotten started. Get ready. Amazon is due out after the bell. Sit on your edge. Wait for that. Take good care, and I'll see you in the morning.